Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. I'll be refuting Rita Panahi. She's a ex-Irani Muslim, Shia Muslim, who appeared on the Sky News Australia, and she's condemning Jacinta, the New Zealand president, for wearing the hijab in order to prove solidarity and diversity with Muslims. Rita, of course, as a secularist, she thinks that Western superioritism is the most dominant ideology over Islam. So she tries to paint Islam as an oppressive religion. Therefore, we should liberate women against the hijab. Let's listen to what she says, and at the end, I will give my rebuttal and refute this individual.
First, I want to talk about the contentious issue of veiling. I wrote this week about the perils of women in the West embracing the hijab as a symbol of diversity and harmony after the horrifying tragedy in Christchurch. The reaction to the column was enormous. Women from around the country and from overseas reached out with their own stories of forced veiling, not just forced by law, but also by societal or family expectations. For women born into modesty culture, veiling is rarely a free choice. The fight against religious veils and modesty culture requirements is one of the defining women's rights struggles of our time. Of course, the Hijab for Harmony campaign in New Zealand was very much well-intentioned, but it was also ill-considered and ignorant of the deeper issues around veiling, particularly in the Muslim world. I wonder how many of those who decided to wear the hijab, including mothers who put their little girls in hijabs and posted the pictures on Instagram with a headscarf for harmony hashtag, I wonder how many had any understanding of what it represents. If you're going to celebrate the hijab, then you should know it's not just a piece of cloth. It's imbued with deep meaning and at the centre of a fight for equality and human rights in the Middle East. Women are being beaten, arrested and locked up for fighting against the imposition of the hijab. And we have a responsibility as free, empowered women in the West to stand by our subjugated sisters rather than give comfort to their oppressors. We should consider the plight of women like Iranian human rights lawyer Nasreen Sotoudeh, who was this month sentenced to 38 years prison and 148 lashes for defending women who were arrested for removing their hijabs. There are much better ways to show solidarity than embracing a highly controversial and symbolic instrument of oppression.
Okay, so Rita Panahi has made a fallacious argument. She's like, women all around the world are coming out because they are forced. And she particularly points to the Middle East, apparently all around the world. And we know that the hijab is mandatory in, say, particularly in the Saudi Arabia or in, for example, in Iran. But we know that there are 50 majority Muslim countries and the hijab is not mandatory in those countries. So then why would you apply a minority view on the hijab being mandatory and then apply it as the symbol of oppression when we know that there are millions and millions and millions of women who do the hijab by choice? In fact, Rita Panahi, she quotes that there are women who are being arrested, who are being beaten for not wearing the hijab. But how come she doesn't quote the women of France who actually protested in the street because their burqa was banned for them by the oppressive French government? So I see a hypocrisy here where she defends women who have been forced to wear the hijab, but she doesn't defend women who their hijab has been taken off them by force. So this is the problem I have with Rita Panahi. If she truly believes in liberal democracy and free speech, free expression, free to wear what you want, she should be against, I agree, from her standpoint, she should be against those who force the hijab on people. But see, Rita doesn't do that. She says, I'm totally against the hijab, regardless whether you wear it by choice or you wear it by force. So that's where the inconsistency is. If she truly believes in liberal democracy, then she ought to have accepted the hijab for women who actually choose to want to wear it. In fact, there are women who are reverts to Islam, and these reverts actually complain that their parents are against them wearing the hijab. So they go against their parents' will to actually wear the hijab. So why doesn't Rita hold solidarity the hands of those revert sisters who are actually oppressed by their own parents for objecting to the hijab that they want to wear? She then spoke about little children wearing the hijab. I speak to most Muslim parents why they actually do it. They do it to train their children to wear modest clothing. They don't do it by force. And if there are parents who actually force children who aren't prescribed in Islam to do it, well, that's the fault of the parents. It's not the fault of the religion. Now, interesting, Rita Panahi says, oh, look, a woman was locked up. I don't know, I think she said something like 38 years or something. Well, you know what people would say in Australia? In Australia, they'll say, well, if you're against the law, if you break the law, then you should just go find yourself another country. I mean, we hear it all the time from secular Westerners that if you don't like it here, then leave. Obviously, this woman should have just left the country instead of going against the law and trying to change the law. She obviously was subjected to going to prison. Now, I'm not defending what this actual country did to her, but what I'm showing you is the mere hypocrisy on accusing Muslims coming over to Australia to try and change your law. You tell them, well, why don't you nick off, go to another country if you don't like it. But then again, when it becomes, you know, a woman being subjected to going to jail for breaking the law of that country, it's somehow, oh no, look, she's been oppressed, she needs to be liberated, she's under oppression. But then you oppress Muslims in this country for trying to change the law. You say, well, you should pack up your bags and leave, go to another country if you don't like it. So why doesn't Rita Panahi and her Islamophobic bigot followers use that same criteria and standard upon that woman who's been oppressed and imprisoned in that country? You know, and the way they paint it as the symbol of oppression, you know, the hoodie that you wear in Australia, you know, sometimes you get cold, you put the hoodie on, or sometimes people go rob a bank, they put the hoodie on, or sometimes people wear the hoodie on when they're trying to rob a 7-Eleven. Yeah, so because a minority of people rob banks, rob 7-Elevens, rob a man's house wearing a hoodie, should I now call it the symbol of criminality because of the actions of a minority? And let's actually show more double standards. You know, they talk about, oh, these countries are oppressive because they force a dress code. Well, Miss Rita Panahi, let me ask you this question, and I'll finish off with this. If you were to walk in Australia and you took off all your clothes and you showed your private organs to society under the symbol of liberalism or the symbol of art, now, what do you think the police would do with you? They would arrest you, wouldn't they? So should we now call it oppression by secular entities and governments for oppressing you for not being able to go out butt naked? And should we, for the same token, say, oh, your knickers or your underpants are the symbol of oppression because that's what the law mandates. So well done, Jacinda. You stuck up for diversity. You stuck up for the women who actually choose to actually wear it. And the only ones who are standing in opposition and against this is the Islamophobes and people like Rita Panahi who wish to ban a garment for those who actually choose to wear it. So much for her hypocritical secular liberalism.